The new economy, it's based on knowledge and talent. Is our higher education system up to the task of providing the knowledge and filling the talent needs?
The U of A is preparing their engineering students very well. They come to us and we can put them to work right away, but we need more.
Latinos, just because they enter college does not mean that they finish college. They finish college at a lesser rate than their counterparts, white counterparts.
Making Arizona and its workforce competitive in the 21st century economy. It's Arizona Week.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support. Once again, your moderator, Michael Chihak.
High-quality jobs will be key to Arizona's future. The main talent source to fill those jobs is our higher education system. We'll look at how the system will provide talent, what one big employer thinks about it, and a potential shortcoming. We'll start tonight with excerpts of a forum featuring the presidents of Arizona's two biggest universities this week at the Tucson Regional Economic Opportunities Annual Luncheon.
Many of you know and have read for years that the knowledge economy that the world is facing now is completely different than an economy based on limited skills that could be quickly acquired and then practiced in a profession or a trade for the rest of your life. And we know that many Americans will switch careers, I'm not talking jobs, but careers, 5 times in their lifetimes. And so the whole notion of talent has taken on a much more dynamic and I think flexible meaning for all of us, and it makes world-class education and ways of knowing and doing that are open to that need to be to adjust and to learn. I've heard many people in the employment community talk about how critical it is for that talent to be people who are articulate and can use the language well, who have numeracy skills, who work well in teams, and more importantly, who view taking on new skills and learning as important as the base disciplinary knowledge itself. And so for us, what it means, I believe, is that not only do we have the obligation to create that knowledge base and to convey it through our very, very open and engaging learning experiences, but also to take responsibility for creating ways of thinking about learning and thinking about growing and developing, so that talent is something we have, but we don't have it and then we're finished. It's something that we develop across a lifetime. That's the kind of workforce that we're preparing young men and women for, and keeping that dynamic approach to their own talent is critical.
Thank you. Dr. Crow?
Yeah, I think the idea that I'd like to get out is this notion of what is talent about. So the simplest model for me to project what talent is about is to use a sports analogy. If you're building a basketball team, you need a fantastic coach and you need fantastic players, and you will do anything within the rules to get that talent and to get those players so that you can win that game. So just keep that in your mind as you think about what I'm about to say relative to talent. So the one thing that we haven't thought enough about relative to talent in economic competitiveness is that we're not even aware of where the game is. So 60% of the global economy is being driven right now by 600 cities around the planet. And if you take those 600 cities and you think of us as being a cluster of a few of those cities, and you think of us with the Sun Corridor being one of the mega clusters of these cities, it turns out that you could probably reduce the competition for the Sun Corridor down to less than 75 other places on the planet. You could look at these places, and we don't think this way. We don't think that one of the places that we're competing against is Metro London, and one of the places that we're competing against is Metro Shanghai, or Metro Houston, or the megaplex Dallas. We just don't think that way. So now, if you think about talent and you use this sports image in your mind where it seems that we take smart pills and we figure out what to do so that we can win in sports, on the other side, we just take dumb pills. And so, and the dumb pills that we take don't allow us to even know the field of play. So if you now take these 75 other places around the planet, and you look at what are the factors that are leading to their unbelievable success, two things emerge as most critical. One is educational attainment, and I don't mean college attainment. Educational attainment past high school. That means technical training, job-specific training, college attainment, master's degrees, PhDs. It's everything, not some things. Educational attainment past high school. And secondly is some combination of entrepreneurship and innovation.
You know, you brought up an interesting notion around the Sun Corridor. Dr. Hart, any additional insight on the Sun Corridor? Is that's going to be a big driver, certainly here in this region, going forward in the next few years?
Well, I think your point earlier that we are an economic region, we're not cities. And the whole notion of a corridor that is welcoming to business opportunities, that takes advantage of the two great research universities that anchor what that corridor represents, that sees us as a team of business leaders, political leaders, education leaders, and incubators for research and development, creates an environment where people want to come and work. The cliche that you build a gas station on every corner, it's not a problem to have a gas station on all four corners of a major intersection, because you in fact do draw business from one another. And we have got to get over a sense that somehow this is a zero-sum game, where one of our communities, one of our cities, one of our counties prospers at the expense of others. We are the future of Arizona. Arizona needs both of our research universities to succeed together, and to be good partners in creating a strong economic environment where people want to be.
You know, it's a great segue into the next theme, and that is the role of the universities. And both of you in recent addresses have mentioned this notion that you're adopting incorporating more complex operating models. You've also both used the language of disruptive type of policies or perhaps disruptive solutions that will help us get there. Could you talk about a little bit more specifics around what that means and the role that the universities are playing, not just what you're talking about, Dr. Hart, in linking together, but some of the specific initiatives that you got underway that might help with this talent issue? And Dr. Crow, could we start with you this time?
How do you drive disruptive economic transformation? You've got to create more disruptors. And so that means you've got to go into the universities. You've got to find a way, not as the only place, but as one of the places, and find ways to create people who are not hidebound to a single discipline, who do not think about an only path, who do not know how to only design a new landing gear, and that's all they know how to do, or only know how to program a software package, and that's all they need to know how to do. They need to be broadly adaptive, broadly educated, technically competent, technically adaptive. And so that means we've got to go back into our own institutions and reconceptualize how they work so that we can produce these more disruptive individuals.
Dr. Hart?
Absolutely, and you heard in the introduction, we were talking about transdisciplinary and transformational. We're not talking about interdisciplinary, where two different kinds of silos that we built and labeled as psychology and sociology or chemistry and physics. We're talking about universities that need to break down old barriers in order to push the frontiers of knowledge and learning. And if we don't break them down, then we will have locked ourselves into those old ways of doing the things we do. And so, as I said earlier, you have to disrupt those conventional patterns in order to make people feel open and free to do what needs to be done in the new economy.
The full forum featuring the U of A's Ann Weaver Hart and ASU's Michael Crow is on our website, azweek.com. Businesses were at the U of A this week seeking talent. Campus Director of Career Services Eileen McGarry is here to tell us how it went. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
How was it this week? How many businesses, how many students involved?
It was great. We were really busy. We've been busy throughout the week with a lot of activity. The career fair saw 254 tables of employers throughout the 2 days, about 180 employers. We probably have seen close to 3,500 students flowing through the fair with great feedback from employers.
Do these numbers serve as an economic indicator? Are you seeing them go up? Is the economy improving? And is that what we're seeing as a result of this?
Well, the number of companies is somewhat on par with last year. What we are hearing about is improved opportunities, more opportunities for students in the way of internships and full-time positions. About 26% of our companies were looking for tech majors only, about 46% both, and the remainder looking for more non-tech. So we have a pretty good mix of employer segments as well.
And where are they coming from? Arizona businesses, California, nationally?
Close to 40% were coming from Arizona. And then the rest, the largest state is California, followed by Texas, New York City, Colorado, some of the other states. And many of them are recruiting for multiple locations and not just one.
And you mentioned tech being one emphasis area. What are some of the other fields that recruiting is occurring in?
Many aspects of businesses, but I would also tell you we saw some companies looking for agriculture and life science students, our biotech industry well represented, nonprofits, even school districts, some coming from education. Quite a variety for students.
Are you getting a sense that these businesses are finding what they're looking for at the U of A?
I have heard repeatedly from many companies that when they come to the U of A, they find a greater quantity of quality students and graduates than when they're recruiting at other universities. I would say as far as fields, we are constantly hearing that they want more of our technical talent, and that's common throughout the nation. And certainly there's always fields that are more competitive for students to break into.
And we're talking about the U of A now, but we heard the presidents of the two universities, U of A and ASU, this week talk about the fact that they don't consider themselves to be competitors, but collaborators in providing talent to businesses. How does that work from the career services point of view?
Well, first of all, we work very closely with our colleagues throughout the other state universities. And in the past 2 years, we have jointly hosted a Arizona Career Mixer at the end of May. And the purpose of that is keeping talent in Arizona. We invite all of our alumni and our students to meet with employers for their just-in-time hires within the state. We're also doing a virtual career fair for the first time, focused on tech talent, because we recognize how in demand IT talent is, and it's an attempt to use all of our state universities and all the talent to help employers in Arizona find that talent.
Now, by virtual, you mean it's done online?
Yeah, it's done online, and it's going to be held October 24th and 25th.
And how do students engage in that? They have a password, they get in, and they can meet with companies that way?
Correct. They
have a chat?
Have a password. They can use live chat rooms and exchange resumes and communicate with companies without having to travel, and the companies don't have to either.
You've described some of the changes that are occurring in the economy and in business as a result of how the recruiting manifests itself. But what else are you seeing in economic changes that may be influencing how businesses are coming after student talent?
Well, some of the changes have to do with demographics, in that even a company that may not be seeing extreme growth is also watching people retire in their workforce, and therefore it's creating a need and a demand for fresh talent to come in. That's one of the trends we're seeing. We have as many companies looking for diverse talent across disciplines as we may have looking at very specific, specialized and focused talent. As an example, one of our top finance companies, one that has actually been looking to recruit at our campus, came to me and said they really selected us because we represent diverse thinkers, and that's one of the things that they're looking for in their company and their operations. So it's not one very specialized area, but the fact that they can recruit students who are very culturally aware and culturally diverse and also represent many disciplines and can bring those together to lead a company.
Do you see a difference in the dynamic in how businesses and students are matching up in relation to the new economy, knowledge-based, looking for talent?
Well, I would say in terms of the types of events that we do and how we're trying to meet those market needs, one of the things is we have an assistant director who's in Phoenix, works that market to make sure employers are getting the best service for their needs. We have an equal person out in Tucson. So we're outreaching companies. We're not waiting for them to come to us. We also have a multifaceted approach to our employer events and career fairs. So while we may have a well-orchestrated fall large career fair, we're also doing panels and mixers, trying to deal with emerging markets that might be harder for students to reach through a career fair. For example, careers in sports, sustainability, and green careers. Those are just a couple of examples.
Eileen McGarry, Director of Career Services at the University of Arizona, thanks for speaking with me.
Thank you.
Tucson's biggest employer is happy with the U of A talent pool, but spokesman John Patterson says Raytheon Missile Systems needs more from the educational system. Raytheon needs engineers. Where does it get them?
You probably don't realize this, but Raytheon is a corporation. I'm talking about the entire corporation, not just Raytheon Missile Systems in Tucson, recruits the bulk of its engineers from the University of Arizona. The U of A prepares its engineers very well. They provide them with the skills they need to be able to come to work for us. But you know, there's a shortage of engineering talent. We're in a talent war. We compete against our peer group to attract the best and brightest engineers. And so we're always on the lookout, and we sometimes have hundreds of jobs at Raytheon Missile Systems that go unfilled because we can't find the talent.
Now, one of the things that you told me before we came on camera was that you don't just recruit from the U of A, but you have a partnership with the U of A. Will you describe that a little bit?
It's excellent. That partnership with the University of Arizona is superb. Whether it's our engineers going to the university to act as mentors or to be guest lecturers or to work with those engineering students on projects. And we have often engineering students that come onto our facility in an intern role or in a temporary role. So it's a great partnership. The U of A is a treasure. It's a research university that absolutely has to be funded appropriately in order to continue to provide that talent pipeline for us.
And in fact, you said you've gone to the legislature and to state officials to try to secure more funding for the university education in the state, correct?
We've been a strong advocate. We've been in front of the Board of Regents many times, urging them to continue to fund the university adequately. And not just the university. We're also concerned about education overall in the state. It's very important that our high schools and our middle schools are world class so that our students can go on to university, they can get these degrees, and they can come to work for companies like Raytheon. In fact, let me tell you a little bit about Raytheon's commitment to education. We have several programs that are underway. Our Math Moves You program, that's Math Moves You with a U. We've given away millions of dollars to help inspire the next generation of scientists, technologists, engineers, and mathematicians. That STEM education is vital to us.
Is Raytheon getting the talent it needs from Arizona's universities?
So far, so good. The U of A is preparing their engineering students very well. They come to us and we can put them to work right away. But we need more. We need more students to go into these STEM fields. We need more engineers to come to Raytheon. And the country is in desperate need of this. Michael, it's a real problem if China and India are graduating more engineers than the United States. That's a danger to our nation. Our technological edge in the world is at risk. And so that's why we're such proponents of this. And that's why we're reaching not only to middle school and but to elementary school to encourage the students that have aptitudes in math and science to stay with it. And the reward is a very exciting career in aerospace and defense, either with us or somebody else.
And that's back to that K-12 issue. What kinds of things do you see happening at the K-12 level in Tucson and the state that may be good signs or may not be such good signs for future employment opportunities?
Well, I do think that the school districts recognize that STEM is critical, that they must emphasize science, technology, engineering, and math, that they must be able to provide those students with aptitudes in those areas with challenging curriculum, so they'll go on and support that and not allow them to be derailed. You know, Raytheon did a study some years ago and found that middle school is the critical time of year or critical time in a student's life where they make a decision about what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. And if somebody whispers in their ear that, well, you know, math isn't cool, you don't want to do that, we've lost them. So we've put a lot of effort into emphasizing to that middle school grade unit specifically that no, if you're good at this, the application of math and science is very rewarding. You get to work on challenging things and have a wonderful career. And it's making a difference so far.
Engineering is the big value area at Raytheon, but what other skill areas are there that you look for trained employees in?
It's, I say it's like a little city, Raytheon Missile Systems. You know, we not only do we have our engineering talent, they are really the stars. You know, of the 12,000 folks we have out there, about 6,000 of them are engineers. So that's the emphasis we place on engineering. But you know, we have finance people, we have supply chain people, human resources folks, communicators, I mean, you name it, they are out there because it takes that kind of talent to run a global company like Raytheon.
And they need the education for that.
They must have the education for that. So as a community, we need to rally together and make sure that our children are getting the right kinds of classes, getting the right kind of education. That's an investment in all of our future, not just Raytheon.
As the cliche goes, young people are the future. In Arizona, young means Latinos, who already are a majority in the state's public school system. How's the higher education system serving them to develop talent? Joseph Garcia, director of the Latino Public Policy Center at Arizona State University, is here for an assessment. Welcome, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you.
First of all, some numbers. What are the demographics of the Latino population in Arizona? Is it the workforce of the future?
Well, at Morrison Institute, we've done quite a bit of study on the Latino public policy, and absolutely the way Latinos go, so will go Arizona. And the reason is simple, demographics. It's Latinos make up about 30% of Arizona's population presently. About 2 million people are Latinos, and we're a growing population. When I say that, it's pretty obvious. When you look at the median age for non-Hispanic whites, it's 44. And when you look at the median age for Latinos, it's 25. So we're talking about a growing population that's only going to be increasing.
And so is the state's post-secondary education system keeping up with that? Are Latinos getting into and getting out of college successfully these days?
Well, you know, it's like many questions. The answer is yes and no. The answer is yes. I mean, there's good news. We need to understand the changing demographics. For the first time this year, there were more Latino kids in Arizona's K through 12 public education system than white kids. So you can see the population coming up through the pipeline, largely Latino. For the first time, there are more Latino high school graduates who are applying and entering college than white kids. The problem is Latinos are less likely to graduate from high school. So you see the gap there. You know, yes, there are more that are applying percentage-wise, but the numbers are lower. So 1/4 of Latinos are dropping out before they finish high school.
But who's getting into college among Latinos? Are we seeing the numbers growing there at the U of A, ASU, Northern Arizona University?
Yeah, I think all the state universities are on board to try to represent the population. Obviously, we're not there yet, but ASU is doing a good job. U of A is pushing this as well. The problem is, if you look at Latinos as a whole, Latinos, just because they enter college does not mean that they finish college. They finish college at a lesser rate than their counterparts, white counterparts. So if you look at the general population right now, only about 9% of Latinos obtained a bachelor's degree in that age population of 24 to 34. And then it just goes up a couple of percentage points as you get into the 35 to 44 age groups, only 10%, 11% for the 45 to 54. So you can see Latinos are graduating or have a 4-year or better degree at a lower rate. And that's going to affect our ability to compete economically as a state, because as Latinos move more and more into the workforce, Latinos are not representative as the high-skilled, high-compensated workforce that you're looking for and able to compete. And that's the danger, is that Arizona could drop down to a second or third state. So that's why all the attention is being paid now. It's not just we need to take care of Latinos, we need to take care of the state, recognize the change in demographics and the changing face of Arizona so everyone can succeed in Arizona, or we fail collectively.
Are the issues at the post-secondary education level for Latino achievement or lack thereof the same as they are for K-12? Language issues, socioeconomic issues? Are there other things?
Yeah, there are other things to look at. Language is not the biggest problem, although obviously there's a barrier there. But the thing to understand is most of the kids coming up through K through 12, especially the younger kids, they're all U.S. citizens. So you know, this is what we need to first debunk that myth that we're educating illegals, if you will. We're not. But the also important thing to know is that we're talking about poverty being the common denominator when we look at what is the problem with education. And if you're a poor kid, if you're a poor Latino kid, and your parents or parent did not go to college, the chances are you are not going to go to college. You are just not brought up in that environment. You don't know about deadlines. You don't know about how do you apply. You might not have ever stepped foot on a college campus. If you're a white kid, a poor white kid, it's the same thing. Poverty is, like I said, the common denominator. So what needs to change, first of all, the game change is expectations, self-expectations of, you know, your kid is going to go to college. We need to talk about that at a very young age. And the expectation needs to be from a system, from teachers to counselors to the institutions, that we need to prepare kids for college. That doesn't mean everyone gets a college education. That's not what I'm saying. Everyone does, however, need to get an education or get a degree or go to community college or better yourselves to get a certificate of some sort. We need to improve Arizona's workforce skill level completely from whatever it may be. So this isn't just about college, it's about educating the workforce.
Joseph Garcia, Director of the Latino Public Policy Center at the Morrison Institute for Public Policy at ASU. Thanks so much for speaking with me.
Thank you, Michael.
That's our program for Friday, September 27th, 2013. Next Friday, a look at legal and educational initiatives aimed at curbing bullying in schools and cyberspace. For Arizona Week, I'm Michael Chihak.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support.